Hello, welcome to Why Wait Till Sunday, the college football DFS show. I'm your host, Alfred, and we have taken a break for the Thanksgiving holiday, and we are back now with a very special guest, Mr. Ray GQ of Destination Devy. I'll do a quick introduction, although if you're watching this, I almost guarantee you already know who this guy is. But I stumbled upon his podcast about, gosh, at this point, I feel like it was like 18 months ago, middle of 2019. Just typed in Devy to iTunes and was searching Devy football, whatever, and came across Destination Devy. I was like, well, let's check this thing out. Within a couple minutes, man, I was like, this guy's special. He's entertaining. He knows his stuff. I think he was talking about Chuba. I think that was the first episode I ever heard was him, just saying Chuba Hubbard, which in hindsight now we've got some different information. But yeah, so welcome to the show, Ray GQ. Need no more introduction, but I love your stuff. Been following you for over a year now, and really happy to have you talk some football today.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for checking out the show. And technically, when I was talking about Hubbard, it was going into the 2019 season, and he smashed that 2019 season. So I was right then. It's not looking as good right now for Chuba during this college season or his NFL prospectus right now. But appreciate you having me on, man. You know your stuff. We were talking pre-show. Been a fan of you for a while, man. So this is pretty cool to come on here and learn from you, man.
Yeah, and I've obviously learned as well from you, and I would say that your passion and excitement for Devy, I was already kind of into it, when I stumbled across your cast, but definitely kept that passion growing, and because of that, I got deeper into Devy. Because of that, I got deeper into kind of prospecting myself, developing my own process, and then decided, hey, I'm looking at all these college players all the time. I'm watching these games now because I'm interested because of Devy. I should see if that can be parlayed into kind of some specific week-to-week DFS stuff, because I feel like the college DFS is just an area that isn't, there's not a lot of people talking too much about it, but super fun. I mean, it's just as fun as the NFL, and that's why I named the podcast Why Wait Till Sunday. We can do this on Saturday too. So, that's what I've been doing. There are definitely some problems with the college game. I've been lamenting the injury reports or lack thereof. I mean, where you get like a guy's out 5 minutes before kickoff that can kill you. So, I'm learning on the fly here, but certainly a lot of fun. And love to pick your brain here about some general concepts about, prospecting, talent evaluation, the things that we do. And then we'll get into the slate, because I think people definitely want to see what's going on in week 14. But so obviously we're in COVID era 2020. We've been talking about that all year long. It's been a season unlike any other. We've had opt-outs, we've had cancellations, we've had, just insane stuff going on. So what have you learned as your own process, your own talent evaluation in this crazy season? So much starting and stopping and all this stuff. Like what's one or two things that you've learned that you can do better, or that you just took from this crazy season?
Yeah, this has been a season like no other, honestly. I cannot. I've been following the game for as long. My father played college football. I played as well for as long as I could remember. And I cannot remember a season as crazy as this one. Like you said, the opt-outs, and then opt-ins, and then opt-outs, and then the cancellations. I can't imagine the job that you have trying to provide actionable DFS content. The fact that you're able to do that as well as you do with all of the fluctuations, that's kudos to you first and foremost, man, because I know you're probably scrambling around like a madman on Saturday mornings just trying to catch who's in and who's out. And these colleges don't have to report like this injury report days before like the NFL, right? So my big takeaway, honestly, I thought about this 2 nights ago, and I was thinking about it last night. I wonder how this season is going to impact college football moving forward. And you see these players like Terrace Marshall did just enough to show I'm legit and I'm going to shut it down, right? I'm not even going to risk it anymore. I came back, 3-4 straight 100-yard games. You saw me catch 10 for 130 versus A&M, and I'm done. Like, I'm done. I wonder how this is going to impact the game moving forward with players saying, I'll play a little bit, I'll play a couple of years, and I'm not playing that final season, or I just so that's it's not really something that I learned because we don't know what that's going to look like, but that is something that's on the back of my mind right now of how this really affects these players moving forward and what they do with their playing seasons.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a really interesting fact that they just do enough to show, hey, I still got it. Whatever you saw last year, it's still there. I mean, Rondell Moore is a perfect example. He came out. I mean, I think he's still playing. We'll talk about him. I think he's on the slate this week, which is pretty exciting. But all I needed was the first game. He came back, he dominated 15 targets or catches or whatever. I mean, he went ham and, okay, he's still Rondale Moore. That's it. You're done. Shut it down. I mean, I totally agree with that. I know you've been kind of pounding that table. And certainly affects a little bit of what do we do? Because, from the analysts and stuff and saying, I'm normally used to seeing 3 years and I want to see freshman, sophomore, junior year. I'm kind of thinking, it's more like, look, you see it once, it ain't going anywhere. If you come out and you dominate, especially as a teenager, I don't need to see that junior year. I know some guys do tank. I mean, look at Chuba. He's the total opposite. Now all of a sudden we're questioning him, but I still think he could, he's been injured a little. It may not be that he's terrible. He just, sometimes you have a bad year. I think if you see it, it may just morph into like, if we see it for at least one season, he's got it. And so we'll see how that parlays going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting though. It's interesting because you say that, and right now I 1000% agree. But then I made the critical error of seeing it a freshman year, seeing it in the first year of a player, not seeing it the second year, forgetting about him, having him ranked way too low and having to adjust. And that player I'm talking about is Jamar Jefferson. We saw a 1,300-yard rushing season, 20 plus receptions as a true freshman in a Power 5 conference, smashed as a true freshman, was injured as a sophomore. I forgot about him. And then he comes back and people are asking me about Jefferson. I'm like, he didn't really have a good, like, it's just, Rondale Moore to an extent, right? We saw him crush every receiving category Purdue had as an 18-year-old. He was on a tear to start 2019, gets hurt, and then people think he's a third, fourth round pick. So it's just, I don't know. And for the analytical crowd, how does Rashad Bateman's 400-yard season factor into his overall profile when we're looking at him for the next level? Because he didn't have 1,000 yards. He didn't catch 50 balls. This season is going to have to, I'm interested to see how the models grade these players out.
Right. And I think, at least you could extrapolate over, okay, what would a 10-game season look like at a normal 13 or whatever? You could do that. Or just go per game. Or again, that's one reason why I really like the metric of, percent of your team's production. So if you only play 3 games, you still know, hey, like exactly what happened with Moore. He came in game 1, like 50% of his team's production. Okay, he's still the alpha. Like David Bell's great, but okay, Rondale Moore shows up after not playing for 18 months and he still just crushes. So I don't care if he had 1,000 yards. He came in for 1 game and crushed his own team. And so that's good enough for me. But well, speaking of exciting guys, we have you and I have exchanged a little on Twitter. We've got a potentially groundbreaking QB class coming in, which is going to drastically have impacts on superflex leagues, especially, but man, even single QB leagues. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a guy you're going to want in Dynasty, not even superflex. So have you seen a QB class like this in recent history? I don't think we have. And, since you've been doing this, have you been as excited about a QB class as you are about 2021 coming in?
I felt like you were setting me up. I felt like this was a trick question because on the margins, I'd want to say no. Like, no, I don't think so. But the reality is, in my opinion, we have 2 elite prospects. Elite. I mean, day one, throw them in. I don't care where they land. They should be starters for an NFL team. Probably could be starters right now. After that, I think you have 4 really solid quarterbacks, right? Really solid. I don't think any of the four are elite. I think all four are starting caliber quarterbacks. I don't know if they're transcendent. I don't know if they're floor raisers. That's a new thing that I've started using, floor raising quarterbacks. I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, you throw them in anywhere. I wholeheartedly believe this, and I know a lot of people laugh, but you take Trevor Lawrence and you put him on this current New York Jets team, they're a better football team. I'm not saying they're a 10-win team. I'm not saying they're a 6-win team, but with those weapons, they're a better team right now. He's a floor, Deshaun Watson, floor raiser. Andrew Luck, floor raiser. Peyton Manning, those type of quarterbacks are floor raisers. Kirk Cousins is not a floor raiser. They're competent NFL starters. Jared Goff is not a floor raising quarterback. So when you're looking at this 2021 class, I think you have 2 elite players, then you have 4 really good players. So while I think I'm excited for this class, I don't know if it's as elite as some of the other classes that we've seen in the past. But I'm pretty damn excited about the landing spots for 5 or maybe even 6 quarterbacks who, I think have a shot to go round 1.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think about even with, we may have 6 first-round quarterbacks, but even within that group of 6, there's 2 that are obviously a cut above. And I don't think anyone's going to argue with you, even though there's some, hot, young, new, fresh faces like Zach Wilson and, Trey Lance that people want to say are going to be top 10, and they might be because the NFL QB thirst is real. And guys get picked that high that have no business getting picked that high, but certainly exciting. I mean, Trey Lance with his running for fantasy purposes, throw him in there. Then you got your Mac Jones and your Kyle Trask. I agree. I think, maybe something like a Kirk Cousins or maybe, really good, better. I mean, gosh, Kyle Trask might be like his ideal ceiling might be Drew Brees if everything works exactly perfect. But I agree with you. I think there's 2 game changers. Trey Lance is potentially a fantasy game changer if he's like an 80-yard rushing type guy on top of everything else. And then Zach Wilson, who knows, man? I mean, I don't know. Is he the next Justin Herbert? Like, does he just come out of nowhere and go ham? I don't know. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying, like, is he a guy that I don't know, just came out of nowhere? I know you're a little bit like, why are we so excited about Zach Wilson? I think he's a little Twitter buzzy, I think, is for sure what's going on.
Here's my thing, man. And I think he's a talented quarterback. I do think he's a first-round pick at the quarterback position. I saw Christian Ponder and Blaine Gabbert go in the first, and EJ Manuel. So, yeah, so yes. The thing, this is why you have to fade the noise. You have to kind of be able to decipher between this thing that I've learned in my time in this fantasy space. There's this echo chamber of I want to be first. I want to identify this guy before anybody else, and then I'm just going to hammer him home. Pot calling the kettle black. That was me with Chuba Hubbard. I felt like I was talking about Chuba before anybody, but I'm not doing that now. I've adjusted, right? And I think a lot of people are, Zach Wilson he's fun. He's a fun player. He's running around. He's throwing for a lot of yards. I don't know what to make of him right now, man. I've seen Mac Jones be productive over 2 seasons. I mean, he stepped in for 2 and played very, very well. I've seen Kyle Trask throw for 3,000 yards last year, and now you give him a full season, he may have, I'm not saying he would throw 60 touchdown passes like Joe Burrow, but he's right there. I think
he's tracking. That. I think he's tracking on the exact same path.
He is. So I just, and even Trey Lance, I don't even care about the 1-game season. There's so much, there's a bigger thing at play. Think about it. I'm asking you and the listeners, if you knew that a team scheduled 1 game against your ass for that's the only game they were going to play, and you knew for a fact the only reason they scheduled that game is so Trey Lance could go off on you, UCA had that was their 5th game of the season, I believe, 4th or 5th game, and they knew that NDSU scheduled that 1 game for Trey Lance. I would send the house at him. I would have new blitz schemes, anything that I can think of to make sure that you do not showcase the NFL evaluators on me. So I'm not even what I saw from him in his redshirt freshman year was enough for Trey Lance. This Zach Wilson hype, I think a lot of it is hype that is generated from the echo chamber that we play in. But he's a talented quarterback. I do think he's a top 32 pick. Is he the second coming of whoever you want to throw out there? I don't know about that. It remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think that's a good word for sure. And I'm learning as well, hopping into the Twitter last year, maybe I'm going in maybe my second year, just kind of even investigating this space. You're right, man. We do have to worry about this, the echo chamber, and just also realizing like the common person who's kind of following along, like they don't get the hype that we get in the Twitter sphere and stuff. And just kind of realizing like, just because you're seeing a bunch of retweets, it maybe is everyone just retweeting each other, and it's not everybody talking about it. It's a circle of like 15 people are talking about a guy. So I definitely think we got to watch out for that for sure. And then the last thing was just transitioning to kind of DFS specific talk here. I know obviously for Devy, and I play Devy as well, and we are thinking long term. We want to identify these guys now, and then we want to graduate them to our NFL rosters, and then play with them for fantasy for a long time, years and years. But how do you think prospecting, evaluating talent filters all the way down into identifying a weekly play for DFS? We're just 1 week. I only care about this Saturday in terms of obviously DFS. So I have a couple ideas myself that I've learned. What do you think in terms of just how does it somehow overlap?
So I'm learning, and I'm here to learn from you because last year was my first year playing like college fantasy football, DFS. Last year was my first year, right? As well as a college fantasy football league on Yahoo. And what I learned was some of the top NFL prospects do not make for the best DFS plays, right? You have to take into consideration. I think it was a crazy stat last year that Travis Etienne had only saw a couple of carries in the fourth quarter of all the games that he played. So some of the players that score you the most points on a weekly basis aren't necessarily these high-end guys that are going to be NFL assets. There's some players who just rush for a lot of yards. That's the way you really have to. That's why I respect what you do, man. You've got to know the teams you're playing against. Sam Ehlinger, and I know we'll talk about him. Fantastic DFS player. Is he the best NFL prospect? Absolutely not. There are some, even Najee Harris, for example. I think Najee is the best running back in college football. My RB1 in the 2021 class. And yes, while he can go out there and smash for you versus Alabama, if they get up 28-0 on a team with 2 defensive touchdowns in the first quarter, a lot of Brian Robinson time. Here comes Jace McClellan, no Najee Harris. So I think you really you've got to pay attention to the matchups. You've got to know your opponents more so than anything. In the NFL, I don't even think about who Christian McCaffrey's playing. I don't care who they're playing. Doesn't matter. He's in the lineup. Alvin Kamara. College is a little bit different. You gotta think about that to a certain degree. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Sorry. No, you're not wrong. And that's what I've really learned, especially because the slates are unique every week, which is a new piece of the puzzle that I have come to really enjoy. In the NFL, you got the same teams every week, but in college, DraftKings is choosing different games every week. So you don't even get to play Keaton Slovis every week. You don't get to play Alabama every week, depending on what games are part of that slate. So matchups are huge. And you're totally right. In college, I'm looking for matchups that I think this game could go 35-35. You can never bank on overtime, but in college, if you hit that overtime jackpot, I mean, you're just talking about like offense. So team games that could be close certainly is a little bit of a tiebreaker for me. And then these insane blowouts. I mean, a team could be projected for 50 points. In fact, UNC Western Carolina was actually on the slate when they first released it this week, and then they took it off. But I don't even think I would have played any Tar Heels because, they're going to score 4 or 5 touchdowns in the first half, but you have no idea who's going to be scoring those in the second half. So yeah, they're projected for 50 points, but it's not going to be guys you pick most likely. So you're totally right on that. And then another thing, from the analytics perspective, I think I found especially kind of some of these smaller schools. And Travis Etienne's a great example of a big school guy, huge prospect as an NFL guy, but they don't. He's not a quote unquote workhorse for them. I mean, he could be if they were in a competitive game for 4 quarters, but he's not getting 20, 25 touches a game. And he can produce on 15, but in college, you've got to have that guy who can go for like 50 points. I mean, the points in college DFS are insane. In the NFL, a guy gets to 20, you're like, oh, you did great. In college, 20 is like, dude, I need you to double that. So you really need these. You got to shoot ceiling, and Etienne is probably more of a floor play in terms of college, and that has nothing to do with his NFL potential. But identifying guys on some of these smaller teams, especially that have 40-50% of their team's receiving production. So like the number one wide receiver for like Eastern Michigan this year has like 40% of his team's production. So if you say Eastern Michigan's in a smash spot, I want that guy almost over like Amari Rodgers for Clemson, who kind of gets sprinkled in, and he's not a dominant receiver, even though he's on Clemson and they're really good. I want the guy from Eastern Michigan. They're going to score 50 points, and he's going to get 40% of that production. So it's knowing how these guys are used specifically in the college game, I think helps identify some of those things.
And I think you could find those college defenses, Ole Miss is going to give up the farm, right? So Elijah Moore, you want the guy. His market share, off the top of my head, it's got to be close to 35-40%. Like, you want that player. You don't want, and I just want to reiterate with you what you said. It does not mean that we think Travis Etienne is bad. No one thinks that, but you're right. Sometimes those players are floor plays, man. And you just have to really pay attention to the matchups, and your favorite college players aren't necessarily your best DFS bets.
Yeah, that's for sure true. And I've learned that. And I think that could be a small edge. I mean, I think the people that are playing college football DFS probably know some of these things already, but I think it's a small edge that, the casual person who's like, I'm going to throw some money down. They're like, I'm just going to pick all the Clemson guys, even though they're going to play Syracuse, get up 28-0, and then rest everybody. So another thing I was, I don't know. We'll just go on. I had an idea, but I think it escapes me. So so we got a good slate this week. We got 15 games. That's kind of a lot. The first thing I usually like to do is just go over the actual matchups real quick. So I'll read them off. We got Texas A&M at Auburn, Texas at Kansas State, Oklahoma State at TCU, Ohio State at Michigan State, Nebraska at Purdue, Liberty at Coastal Carolina, which is a small school gem of a matchup right there. Syracuse at Notre Dame, UF at Tennessee, West Virginia at Iowa State, Iowa at Illinois, Indiana at Wisconsin, Boston College at Virginia, Vandy at UGA, Stanford at Washington, and Georgia Tech at NC State. And immediately you can kind of like write off some of these games. I mean, Iowa, Illinois, probably not going to be a lot of players I'm very interested in. That Indiana game, probably not. In Indiana, Wisconsin. I mean, Indiana's actually got a decent defense, and Wisconsin, you never want to play really anyone against the Wisconsin defense. So yeah, I mean, you can actually, like you said, I mean, you can kind of cross off a couple of matchups, but the easiest way to do that is, of course, I always go over the team totals by implied team totals, just looking at the spread, because Vegas is smarter than I am. And you got UGA against Vandy, 43 points, but this is, their implied total is 43. But this is exactly what you were talking about with how do you come into this game, because they're going to just manhandle Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt is horrible. And like you were talking about, the defenses in college. So in the NFL, right, these guys are all pros. And the worst defense in the NFL can rally the troops, come out on fire. Maybe it's a primetime game or whatever. They don't want to get embarrassed, just like you said about Central Arkansas or whatever against Trey Lance. And they're professionals. They can come out and have one of these inexplicable games where like they limit somebody. In college, the talent can just not be there. You played college football, you know what it's like. Sometimes it just doesn't exist. And I think that's what's happening with Vanderbilt. They cannot rally the troops. Like, they are not going to come out and stop Georgia. So, I don't think you can hope for a competitive game here. Then you get to the point of like, well, when are these backups going to come in and stuff like that. So actually, I don't love playing guys from a game like this. Any thoughts there? But I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when you were mentioning it earlier.
No, 100%, man. You nailed it. And I'm telling you, as a former college player, when we were in those games, this is what we said on the sideline. Oh, we got next year. Let's just get out of here. Like, literally. I mean, would you be shocked if in the first 4 Vanderbilt possessions we saw 2 fumble returns for a touchdown, a pick down to even an interception inside the red zone? I mean, that takes away yardage and points. Right. I mean, it's just they're not going to be able to matriculate the ball down the field on Georgia. I mean, you think Zamir White would be a great play, but maybe not. I mean, it could be a Kendall Milton. Like, you're guessing. Is it James Cook? Is it Kendall Milton? Is it? I just don't want to, like you said, I wouldn't touch it, man.
Yeah. And I mean, interesting, White, he's a guy, I think another example of a pretty decent NFL prospect. I think different people have different opinions on him, but he's at least a decent NFL prospect, but he doesn't get 20, 25 carries. Like, they're not relying on him. And part of that's the Georgia system. We learned that with DeAndre Swift, but he's not going to get 30 carries like Letty Brown for West Virginia or something like that. So you want to find these other guys. So we're going to skip Georgia for now, but let's go down the list. I mean, Notre Dame is implied team total of 42 against Syracuse. I think there's maybe some bites out of that apple we can look at. Ohio State implied team total of 40 against Michigan State. I think we're going to like some guys there. UF, interestingly enough, implied team total of 39, but the smallest spread of these big matchups, only 16.5. So Vegas says that maybe this will be a little bit closer. I think it's at Tennessee, so it's away. Tennessee's awful, but it's a rivalry game. I mean, maybe they, like you said, I mean, you're hoping, honestly, when these games, I'm hoping for like Tennessee gets 10 points early, so it's like not a blowout. So UF has to score to catch up and then pours it on and then doesn't rest until like late fourth quarter or whatever. So maybe something like that. Here's an interesting one. NC State on this slate is the 5th highest implied team total, 34 points against Georgia Tech, who I love Georgia Tech. They're fun to root for, but they are bad on defense. And that is an interesting one. I think we can really mine some value at NC State. Coastal Carolina implied team total of 33 against Liberty. Coastal Carolina this is fun. I love playing guys from Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina Liberty is so fun that's even on the slate. Although RIP Malik Willis, unfortunately, who tested positive for COVID, I guess today. So that's a really huge bummer.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
No, that came out today. I'm so bummed. I mean, maybe it'll turn out to be a false positive, but that sucks so bad.
That would be a fun matchup with him on the ground and through the air versus McCall.
That was a huge bummer today. Iowa, Illinois, Purdue at Nebraska's got 32 and UVA 31 points implied at Boston College. So anyway, I mean, we won't go all the way down, but those are the highest scoring teams. That's kind of like the top third of implied team totals. But just getting into then the players, and this is what I want to talk to you about and kind of get your take on, are these guys even good? But we'll start at the top. Quarterback, Justin Fields. I mean, this guy's incredible. He's 10,000 on DraftKings, the most expensive player on the slate. But I don't think I'm going to have a problem playing him this week. Even at 10K, it could be a blowout, though. That's the only thing. I mean, Michigan State's pretty terrible, but the Ohio State defense is not very good. So I think it could be one of these like pinball games a little bit. But I love Justin Fields.
And even if it's a blowout, I think you can pencil Fields in for 2-3. I'm being conservative here. 2 touchdowns. Conservative. That's conservative. I mean, that's super conservative. I wouldn't even their defense isn't very good. Sean Wade's given up a lot. Michigan State can throw the ball at times. I do believe that even at 10K, I would not bat an eye starting Justin Fields in this game. And they were off last week, and there's all these rumors about depending on what happens in the Big Ten, them being left out, like they're going to put on a show. They're going to want to go out there. And one thing we've learned about Ohio State, they don't let off the gas. They do not let
You
off the
want
gas.
that. Yeah, you want like the Lane Kiffin. I remember when Ole Miss played Vandy and they were throwing and they were up like 56-13 and they're still throwing into the end zone. That's what you want. But yeah, I have no problem. I mean, Justin Fields, I know he's expensive. 10K is a huge number, but like, you're right. I mean, I think he's the engine of the offense. He can run it in a little bit too. I think 4 touchdowns is way in play. And that's just what you want. You know, if you're going to pay 10K, you want 4 touchdowns plus. And I agree. I like him a lot. So then we come to Kyle Trask. I think, you know, these are the 2 most expensive guys on the slate, but I think I may, you know, try to do some lineups here with both of these stud quarterbacks because Florida does not run the freaking ball. No. I'm a Gator fan. I went to UF. I've watched every game. We don't even try. We do not even try to run the ball. Dameon Pierce is a nice looking player, but we do not establish the run. You know, thankfully we don't. We just wing it around, and it's great to watch. So I love Trask. I've kind of started playing him a lot every week because, you know, I mean, 300 yards is a lock. He is going to get the 300-yard bonus, no question about it.
Well, and then look at their last 5 games: 34 points, 38 points, 63 points, 44 points, 41 points. I mean, and they're one of those teams. And right now is key. So maybe this is a little tip for your listeners. These teams have to impress. They want to impress the College Football Playoff Committee. Tennessee's not good. I think with these rivalry games, they're at home. They come out strong in the first quarter. You know what I mean? They play hard. They run Eric Gray. I think Bailey is playing. Is Harrison Bailey playing?
He's supposed to get in. I don't know if he's starting or what.
Okay. Well, either way, I'm with you. Florida, they can run the ball, but they don't. They're not going to. It's the Kyle Trask show. They're averaging 40 plus points per game. I'm throwing him out there. Like you said, if you were a little bit weary of the 10K for Fields and you wanted a little bit of a discount, Kyle Trask is a lock for 300 yards, multiple touchdowns. I don't think you have to worry about that. And the good thing is he doesn't turn the ball over. So you're not getting the negative points there as well.
Yeah, and he's actually a little less than he was the last couple of weeks for I don't know what reason, because there's no reason for him to be a little less. So it's a small discount there, probably worth doing. Then we come to Ian Book, who's jacked up to 9,300. I mean, he's been in the 7,000s. He had a nice game, I guess, against UNC, but that was a premium matchup, dude. I mean, that's when you want to play Ian Book, and I did. I don't want to play Ian Book this week. Even though it's against Syracuse, I think they're going to lay the hammer on, and we'll talk about their running back, but I don't think they're going to have to force the issue against Syracuse. And I think he's kind of way overpriced at 9,300. I'm not saying anything about him as a player, but they don't want to open it up.
No, and we'll get to it, but I don't think they'll have to open it up. And if you really looked at some of Book's throws from last week, there could have been multiple interceptions in that.
How about
game.
the option flick?
Just literally just here, somebody go get it. But they've got a stud toting the rock for him, and it probably will get ugly quick. So I don't know if I'd pay that price for Ian Book this week. They just don't need him. You know, last week was, even though UNC was a little inept after their first drive, it was a tight game. And they needed him to do some things, but Syracuse is a much easier matchup for them, so it could get ugly really fast, and Notre Dame's defense is probably good for a touchdown.
They're sick.
A touchdown in that game as well.
Yeah, and even if you're playing UNC and you're up 10, you don't feel comfortable. If you're up 10 against Syracuse, you probably feel fine. So I think that's another thing too. Even though they controlled the game, they probably didn't feel comfortable because UNC's a real nice offensive team. So yeah, I think Ian Book, the matchup, and he went up because he had a nice game last week, I guess, but I'm not doing that. Sam Ehlinger for Texas, quintessential. I've been saying this all year. I mean, quintessential college, gritty, rah. He's from Austin or something. Like, they just love him. He's not a good quarterback, but he gets it done in that offense for Texas. I hate playing him because I do have a problem playing like guys. I'm just like, he's not good. I hate watching Sam Ehlinger. He's not good, but he's the engine of the offense. He gets a lot of running yards. 9,100 is not bad against who is it? K-State, I believe, this week.
Yes, K-State.
which is a middling defense. I don't know. I just don't play Sam Ellinger. He rarely gets to 300 yards. He rarely gets to 100 yards on the ground. He's kind of just there.
Yeah, yeah, he's gonna do his Sam Ellinger things, and I wouldn't be enthused. You said how much is he? How much is he on?
90 or 91 or not, I think 9. Yeah,
Yeah,
9100.
you might as well just pay up. If that's the case, pay
Yeah.
up to get a better quarterback where you know you're getting the 300 yards. You know, with Fields, you're getting 3 touchdowns plus
Mhm.
something on the ground. With Trash, you're getting your 300 yards. You got 2 TDs, the Pitts already in the bag. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
wouldn't just pay up. I wouldn't. And Kansas State is that team, man. Just when you think they shouldn't do anything, they come out there and then they play good the
Yeah, I've
entire
never
game.
had
And
a read on K-State like in my
they,
entire life.
nobody has. Nobody has. Impossible to read.
Yeah,
Literally
I hear you.
impossible to read.
All right, JT Daniels. We kind of talked about Georgia. He's at 9,000. I actually think, just from a prospect point of view, he's shown some things already in a couple of games that I'm like, okay, JT Daniels, maybe we're seeing a little bit what made you the number one quarterback in 2018 or whatever it was. Um, but as far as DFS this week, I just can't play any Georgia players against Vandy. I don't know where those points are going to be coming from. And like you said, defensive scores, that takes out a whole drive, for us, that we need pedal to the metal the whole time.
Yeah, defensive scores. There'll be a punt return for a touchdown, a kick return. I think I think he's a really good quarterback, man. I think I'm glad to see him over that devastating knee injury. But this week, you just can't trust it. You play whoever you play from Georgia. What's going to happen is you play the running back. The quarterback is going to score the points. You play the quarterback. It's going to be 5 different running backs that score, and you're just not going to be happy. Just sometimes it's okay to pay up. It's okay to pay up. You don't have to bargain bin shop every week in DFS, NFL or college side.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on Coastal Carolina, so that's the next guy, Grayson McCall, their quarterback. He's kind of an interesting dude. He's a redshirt freshman. He does a little of everything. He's got a little bit of that Konami code in him. He can run around, gain some yards on the ground. Looking at this matchup, though, honestly, I was surprised. The Liberty defense is pretty decent, and
They are.
both defenses are actually pretty good, even though there's some fun offensive players. And now we're talking about Malik Willis not playing, so that changes the context of the whole game. It's not going to be back and forth nearly as much, I would imagine. I don't know who Liberty's backup is, but I can't imagine he's good.
No, he's not better than Malik Willis. And
Yeah.
before you said that he was out, that's what I was going to say. This is the matchup you want to play. This is going to be back and forth, Willis McCall. But if Willis is out, I'm sure McCall will do his thing, but you're not going to see the back and forth shootout that we would if that dual threat quarterback Willis was playing. So
Yeah, I think he's a little bit off, and he's 8,600, so he's not even like some big bargain.
no.
Then we drop down to 2 guys I kind of like. Jack Plummer for Purdue, mainly because the Nebraska matchup's not that good or not that imposing, and also the weapons around him. I mean, this guy's throwing to 2 first-round picks in Bell and Moore. I know your guy Moore for sure. I like a guy who's not near the top of the prices with those weapons in a soft matchup against Nebraska.
Yeah, there's nothing more that I have to add. And, the good thing about his receiving core is he doesn't even have to do much. Just throw a 3-yard hitch route to David Bell or Rondell Moore and let them rack up the yard. The DFS points, they don't care how they come, whether they're air yards or screenplays. That he doesn't have to do much. Think about those. Rondell Moore, he's good for, 2 or 3 touch passes, those kind of jet, just tap forward. There's a cheap touchdown for you. So, if you're going to bargain shop, you bargain shop with quarterbacks that have those type of weapons, and he doesn't have to do a whole bunch in order to score points.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Jack Plummer is going to be a nice savings to pay up elsewhere. And in the Superflex, you need to find 2 QBs. So you can rarely go 2 very expensive QBs. You usually got to find somebody down the line who's got a solid matchup. And another guy like that is Bailey Hockman for NC State. Like I said, they have the 5th most implied team points on the slate. And this guy's buried at 7,400. He just had a 300-yard game last week. Kind of an unknown dude. I mean, I don't know much about Bailey Hockman. I'll just be honest with you. But he's got some weapons. He's got MZ shoot, I'm gonna butcher this thing. Emizzi, I think, is one of his top receivers. He's got some nice guys there. Zonovan Knight's an interesting guy out of the backfield. And the matchup is beautiful. Georgia, I mean, I just like playing guys against Georgia Tech. So
Yeah.
he seems like a bargain guy for me, and he's shown he can get to 300. He just did it last week. So it's not like we're just hoping on a prayer there.
What's his price point? How much is he?
7,400. So kind of middle of the range. I mean, there's some guys less that I want to bring up too, but he's kind of close to the bottom of the real viable options.
I like it, man. And again, implied team total. If Vegas is saying they're going to score, listen, Georgia Tech is bad on defense. Bad.
Yeah, I think most yards per play given up on the slate and most points per game given up on the slate. So
yeah, yep.
Then we got Phil Jurkovec from Boston College. He's 6,600, so he's even less. And again, Boston College, so they have a matchup with Virginia, who historically is kind of a defense-first team. But this year, they're a bit of a pass funnel, which makes him a little interesting. So, they give up the second most yards per pass attempt on the slate at Virginia. Middle of the road in terms of the volume of pass attempts the defense is giving up. And their run defense is actually kind of good. So, I mean, if you're going to attack this team, throwing the ball is a way to do it. And Jurkovec, has had some 300-yard games. He had like 4 in a row in the middle of the season. He hasn't done it recently. He can also chip in 30, 40 yards on the ground. At 6,600, given the matchup like we're talking about, I mean, Virginia seems like a team that you would try to throw on more than pound the rock. So it's interesting at 6,600, I think.
Yeah, and they're allowing, like you said, close to 300 passing yards a game, almost 150 rushing yards a game. And we saw Boston College just 2 weeks ago, or maybe it wasn't 2 weeks ago, but 2 games ago, they put up 31 versus Notre Dame, man. And that's a great defense. I'm not saying Jurkovec was out there looking like Peyton Manning, but he pushed close to 300 passing yards, had a couple of touchdowns in that game. So if you are going to really bargain bin shop, he could be a viable option.
I mean, is it crazy to say he's like discount Sam Ehlinger a little bit?
That's probably accurate.
I feel like that's kind of what we're looking at there.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. The matchup's right.
That's really good. That's really good, actually. I mean, they're probably going to have around the same passing yards when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and chip in a little on the ground too, and all that kind of stuff. So then we got if you are punting, if you want to punt that super flex spot, we got Howard. His first name escapes me, but it's Howard. I think it's Will Howard for Kansas State. He is not the original starter because Skylar Thornton's been injured most of the year. But it's simply a matchup play and it's simply a price play. He is 5,300, which is essentially the stone minimum for a quarterback that you're going to see. And it's against Texas. And any opposing offense who's playing Texas, it's worth thinking about because they kind of force the issue. Texas's defense allows the most plays run, or at least the top 3 plays run, because their offense plays fast. The whole game gets sped up. This is not a talent thing, but it's 5,300 and a guy who might have to force the issue. He runs the ball a little bit. He has a 100-yard game on the season on the ground. At 5,300, he doesn't have to do too much. I mean, he needs to get you to 20 points. I think that could be doable against Texas.
Yeah, the first time I saw him play, I believe, was versus Oklahoma State, and all he was doing was running around, and like he looked fine, like for what he was asked to do. So. Texas is going to give it up. So if you're, like you said, if you're going to punt it, and we just talked about it a few minutes ago, somehow, some way, Kansas State always shows up for these games. So I may not play that, but if you were going to punt that position, I think you can do a lot worse than Howard in that spot.
Yeah, I think it's risky if you're doing it. I think kind of like tournament situation. If you want to really punt and stack everywhere else. All right. So I guess we do kind of need to speed it up a little bit. The quarterbacks are always fun to talk about. So I'll move this thing along. We got running backs. We've already mentioned them as we've talked about the other offenses on the slate. But yeah, first and foremost, actually, and shockingly, most expensive running back on the slate is Kyren Williams for Notre Dame. Total stud, huge riser on my Devy rankings. I think the same thing for you this year. I played him with utmost confidence against Georgia Tech, which I thought was going to be a smash spot. And, he kind of just didn't get the touchdowns. He actually had a great game. He only got 15 touches or something because they were up. It was one of those situations where they just kind of took the pedal off the metal. Against Syracuse, could that happen again? I love the matchup, but I don't know.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal running back, and that's the problem. It's trying to predict, and I could see it going one or two ways. I could see him getting the second carry of the game and going for 80 and a touchdown, and it's just going to be a smash game for him, or him playing very well and them not needing him to do all of that. Like, if he's the highest priced running back on the slate, I would probably, I'd like to see where some of the other price points are, but we talked about North Carolina State, Bam Knight, Zonovan Knight. If I'm not saying Zonovan Knight's a better running back than Kyron Williams, but at, you said 90, what,
92. It's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, if you went with him in Fields, I mean, there goes your roll right there. Your bankroll is done. Right. I mean,
and he's coming off, I think these guys get jacked up. He's coming off 3 touchdowns against UNC, and that was a little unexpected for me, but he did get in the zone. But like, is he going to do that again? I think I want to play him against Syracuse. 9,200 is tough. I mean, maybe you throw a couple out there if you're doing a bunch of tournament plays, but in cash games, if you're trying to get a double up and you just want that floor play for your value, that's a tough one to swallow, I think.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a guy who I think just the fact he's not the most expensive running back on the slate means he's a value, and that's Breece Hall, 8,700. This guy should always be the most expensive guy on the slate.
Yes. I mean, yes.
He's he's got good.
Eight straight, 9 straight 100-yard games to start the season. Yeah. I mean, he's ridiculous. He's penciled him in for 2 touchdowns, 100+ yards. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. And who does Iowa State play? West Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I would pivot from Kyron Williams to Breece Hall in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and you're lock and load almost no matter how the game goes, 25 to 30 touches. Like they feed him because he's easily the best player on the team, I think, even though they have some other nice players. Breece Hall's an absolute stud, man. The guy's freaking grade A, just beef. He's awesome. So yeah, I think just the fact he's not the number one guy means he's probably getting some value there. And I love Breece Hall. I think, and I know we talked about a lot about matchups in college, but I think he's as close to you can get as that kind of CMC type play where you don't care about the matchup. He's going to get his 25 touches. He's going to be, if they ever get near the end zone, he's going to be option 1, 2, and 3. He's just matchup proof. I mean, he's done it. He's that guy. He's awesome.
Yep. And I was wrong. He did not have 100 yards versus Texas. He had 91. So it's one game where he didn't have 100 yards. Yeah, he's horrible. Pivot, stinks.
Pivot. All right, yeah, we like Breece Hall. Interesting guy here for Purdue, Xander Horvath. Kind of has come out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, I don't know who this guy is, but he's like interesting, right? I mean, he's catching 5-6 passes a game and running the ball okay, but he's such a pass catcher that for DFS purposes, PPR, he's very interesting, and it's a nice matchup against Nebraska, 8,400. I don't know, it might be a little pricey, but he's just like commanding 25 touches, and a lot of them are receptions.
I had no clue who he was until I started actually watching Purdue when Rondale Moore came back. Well, I love David Bell as well. He's my top-ranked wide receiver in 2022. But I had no clue who that running back was. I was like, who the hell is this dude? And why do they keep throwing to him all the time? But he's producing. So
he's like a big, thick white dude wearing number 40. He looks like Mike Allstott out there, who I think went to Purdue, actually, didn't he?
He did go to Purdue. That's why I was like, who the hell is this dude?
The second coming of Mike Allstott.
What's his price point?
So he's 8,400, third most expensive, but if he's gonna get 5 receptions, it might be worth it. Those receptions are just huge.
Play Mike Allstott.
Yeah, we're IT over here. We're playing Mike Allstott. All right, yeah, and we'll kind of go through. So Master Teague, I don't think you can go wrong with him. Here's a question for you: prospecting. The Ohio State's got 2 guys who have been kind of eyes on NFL prospects for a while. Master Teague's been there, but then Trey Sermon came in from Oklahoma. Seems to me like Master Teague's just taking that backfield.
Yep. Yep. I mean, unfortunate, but that's what it is. I think a lot of us were assuming that Trey Sermon was going to come in. It was, still don't know if it was a complete Achilles tear for Master Teague or partial. I don't know, but I didn't even think he was going to be ready. And they said he was, and he is, and he looks good. And I mean, he's been there, so he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, he looks good too. And he's getting, kind of that. I like to at least get guys I can expect about 20 touches, unless they're super cheap, and then I'm okay with less. But I want at least 20, and he's kind of getting that now. And it is a decent matchup against Michigan State. So I think 8,300, a little bit of a discount there. We go to Jahmyr Gibbs, who is an awesome talent for Georgia Tech, but I don't love the matchup against NC State. And he's a little bit gimpy. I think he had a slight injury last week. So I think we'll pass on him at 8,100. Letty Brown at 8,000. This is a volume running back. I don't know how good he is in terms of pure talent, but he just gets 30 touches a game. I mean, it's so much. They just give him the ball. And West Virginia, I have to remind myself, plays Iowa State. Not the best matchup. Iowa State's actually better on the ground. They're actually pretty stingy on a yards per rush situation. So he's a volume play, but I'd rather see him in the 7s or even high 6s maybe, because the matchup's kind of gross. But he's definitely going to get 25 touches.
Yep, I'm looking at his last couple of games, and he's getting it 24, 15, 24, 21, 18. And that's not including the receptions.
Too, yeah.
Yep, 1, 3, 4, 7, 5.
Right.
So you're right around that 22, 25, 26 touch range per game. And that's in DFS and fantasy. That's all you could really ask for. You just want the touches. I need players that are going to have an opportunity to score me points.
Right.
And he's going to get at minimum 20 opportunities to do something.
Yeah. So I don't mind that actually. 8,000. It's not too bad. Back to Coastal Carolina, CJ. I don't know. Do you know how to say his last name?
No.
Marable?
Yeah.
Marable?
CJ. Yeah.
CJ Marable, 7,800. He's an interesting kind of dual threat. He does a little of everything, catches some passes. But again, Liberty defense pretty good. I'm not sure I want to do that, because the next guy for 7,400 is in a huge spot. That's Tyler Goodson for Iowa against god-awful Illinois. And this is a team where they just want to run the ball. They don't even give a crap about passing at all.
Nope.
He had 30 carries last week, 30 for Tyler Goodson. He was 6,400 last week. I played him with too much to my delight. So he went up $1,000. I still think he's underpriced in this matchup. I mean, look at the guys above him, easily into the 8s, into the 9s, but Goodson's in a good matchup, and he's going to get 25 touches, I think. So.
Yep, and they're allowing close to 200 rushing yards per game.
Yeah, Illinois.
I mean, that if we're just saying locks, I mean, he's getting 20, 25 touches minimum in this game. I don't care about the pass catching. He hadn't caught a lot of passes this year. Illinois is bad. Tyler Goodson's good. They're not going to throw the ball, and they're giving up 200 rushing yards a game. I mean, the process is there.
Hashtag it ain't complicated, right? That's your thing now.
It ain't
not complicated.
Football is not complicated, man. Trying to simplify the game.
Yeah, I feel like Tyler Goodson is not complicated this week. 7,400. Get excited about that, folks. Austin Jones, have you looked at him at all? The Stanford running back this year, kind of an interesting guy. I mean, he's getting some interesting usage. He's getting used in the passing game as well, and I think he's a good little player.
I think he's looked good, and he's scoring touchdowns, man. He's scoring TDs. They're giving him the ball. I saw him last week for the first time. I watched him, and I was just kind of like, who is this guy? Out of the same area that I'm gonna butcher it, Antioch, California. Anyway, that's where Najee Harris is from. So
nice.
There's a little backstory there. But Stanford wants to establish the run. You've got a running back who's getting the opportunity. How much does he cost?
Yeah, he's 7,100. So we're going down the list. That's not too bad. And Washington's run defense in their 3 games. I mean, we get a small sample size with the Pac-10 teams at this point, but certainly not imposing. 4.5 yards per carry. That's in the bottom bottom third of the defenses on this slate. And you got a team that wants to run the ball. So I kind of like that at 7,100. That's not a bad deal. Then we go to Zamir White. We talked about Georgia. We're not going to really dig into those guys. Deuce Vaughn for Kansas State. I don't love running the ball against Texas because teams usually have to pass a lot. Now he catches some passes, but I guess 6,600 though, we could start thinking about it. He's an interesting little talent. True freshman, like 5 foot nothing.
Yeah,
But exciting guy.
he is, but this is the classic case of, and I said this at the beginning, I like the player and I want to like Deuce Vaughn, but it just may not be the best matchup for him. Even though if he goes out there and smashes, I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't know if I feel comfortable. But I mean, the price point is good, right? So depending on how you build that team, cash or tournament, it may not be it's not a horrible play, but I think you can do a little bit better depending on how you construct that team.
Yeah, I kind of agree there for sure. Bam Knight, we talked about him. Now, this is a guy, we need to start the free Bam Knight movement. Why the hell are they giving Ricky Person the 50% of the workload? What are they doing, man?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I was, in the offseason when I was kind of doing my review of like, I want to look at freshmen and sophomores who kind of did some stuff last year. Bam Knight came up. He was productive as a true freshman. And I was like ready to watch him go this year. And Ricky Person is a thorn in my side, man. I don't know what they're doing. They need to give Bam Knight all the touches because he is clearly better and he's a good player.
They want him to return kicks. They just want to have him as a kick returner and then let him break off runs and then take them off. I don't get it. I have Bam Knight all over my C2C rosters. I think he's a really, really good running back. And analytically, he did very, very well as a freshman last year, as a true freshman in a Power 5 conference. But the volume, right? What are you going to get? It could be a 20-touch Bam Knight game. It could be an 8-touch Bam Knight game. It's risky. It's boom bust with him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not playing him. The matchup is great. I want to play him, but I can't. They're giving Person even more. Like sometimes he's getting 15 to Bam's 12. It's like, what are you guys doing? And Person's just doing nothing with the carries. I mean, he's like 2 or 3 yards less per carry. Anyway,
I know, man.
I could go on and on. That frustrates me every single week. All right, then we got if Keontae Ingram remains out, which I kind of think he's gonna stay out. I've been playing Bijan Robinson every week, been a little disappointed every week, but I feel like he's gonna pop. The talent is there. What do you think about Bijan? 5,700. I just feel like I'm gonna have some if Ingram's out and he's gonna get the majority of the touches.
If Ingram's out, you play him. If he's in, it's just going to be nasty. I don't know. Is Roschon Johnson playing? They still want to work him in from time to time.
Yeah. He's a dud.
I know. A converted quarterback that they want to give the ball to. Just let Bijan run. Let him cook. But we haven't seen the full Bijan breakout game yet, and it's got to come. It's got to come.
I kind of think so.
It's got to come. And you said 5,700?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do a lot worse than playing Bijan.
I mean, he's one of those guys where, like, we've talked about matchup, we've talked about all these different things, but he's a guy that I just want to play because of the talent. I know we're saying we don't want to play for the talent, but he's a guy that's like, he's just so good that I feel like that I just want to be on it when he does have that 20 for 150 and 2 touchdown game, because I think that's very possible. So it's one of those where I mean, maybe throw some in some tournaments, but he won't be part of my main, cash lineup probably.
Right.
And then we got, I don't know if you got a beat on the West Coast. I would love to know if you have opinion on the Washington Huskies backfield. This has been a 3-headed monster. You got Pleasant, McGrew, and Newton. The depth chart is Pleasant first. I don't know. I want to play one of them. Stanford's awful. Stanford's terrible against the run, but I have no idea who to play. Do you have any insight there at all? And it's okay if you don't, because I don't know if anybody does.
Don't ask me, because I'm a big Richard Newton fan. I thought he was going to be the guy this season, and it's truly like a 3-headed monster.
I can't differentiate it at all.
He changed his number this year to number 6. So I thought it was like, I was like, all right, he's got a single digit number. He's ready to go. He went from 28 to 6. He's going to be the guy. And Savon Ahmed is out of the way, and it's a dirty 3-headed monster, man. And like literally, their stats are damn near identical. So
Yeah,
uh,
I cannot differentiate at all. But the matchup's so good with Stanford, so I don't know. Maybe pick one if you again tournament play, pick one and hope for the best. But
yep,
there's no way
yep,
we can know what's happening there.
nope.
All right, receivers. Maybe we'll try to run through these real quick. I appreciate your time. We're hitting an hour here. Okay, here's an interesting thing. So Purdue, we talked about Plummer, we talked about the matchup. David Bell is 7,500, but Rondale Moore is 6,800. That makes no sense. Did Rondale opt out? He did not opt back out, right? He's still playing, I'm pretty sure.
I believe so.
I don't think
Wow.
he's out. I don't, that price point makes 0 sense to me. And I'm going to be all over Rondale Moore at 6,800. He's like the 7th most expensive guy against Nebraska. I don't know. I love
mean,
it.
if there's a lock button, yes, I think they're probably the makers, the odds makers are saying or trying to indicate. I think they're trying to sucker you into that one as well to go David Bell. I know the touchdown upside is there with David Bell, but the volume, Rondale Moore is going to catch. I think he had a down game last week. He had like 7 receptions
Still
for
7.
70. Yeah, I mean, at 6,800, lock.
Yeah, I think that's almost as close as you can get to the lock of the week. I mean, 6,800 in a good matchup already. Already like the matchup, and I was like, "Where's Rondale Moore? Where's Rondale Moore?" I scrolled down and found him at 68, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I love that. And then David Bell's. I mean, I love David Bell, but he's a little tough to stomach at 75 when I can have the savings and go to Rondale. So,
Correct.
Most expensive guy on the slate is Garrett Wilson. I think it's warranted, 8,800. He is awesome. My prediction in the beginning before the season was he was going to overtake Olave because I think Olave's best role is a very good 2, but I think Wilson is a stud and he is showing it. And I can't fault anyone for going Fields Wilson stack, but that's going to be difficult to what else you're going to have to find tons of bargains elsewhere, but I don't hate it. I'll probably do some just because those guys are cooking.
Wilson is outstanding. Pride of Lake Travis, Texas, man.
Dude, yeah. I think I just recently actually, I think I put him ahead of Pickens.
He's ahead of Pickens for me. It's Bell, Wilson, Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on at Georgia. They've had a weird QB situation, but yeah, I mean, God, Wilson's doing everything you want him to do.
He's a ridiculous athlete. It was only a matter of time before he breaks out. And if you don't go Justin Fields, I would not be scared about, well, I don't have the Fields Wilson stack. He's going to get his. I mean, Michigan State is not going to be able to stop him. Mm-hmm. Fields is looking his way first. Like there has been a shift from Olave to Wilson, and you've seen it over the past I won't say weeks because I feel like they haven't played consecutive back-to-back weeks, but their past couple of games, he's been on fire.
Yeah, dude, he's awesome. I mean, I think we're looking at first round future pick there and just total stud. All right, speaking of total studs, your guy Kyle Pitts is 7,800. Again, we're talking about stacks. I mean, you got the most expensive quarterback, the most expensive receiver. You got the second most expensive quarterback correlated with Pitts here. I mean, what are you going to say about Kyle Pitts? Yeah, he's a tight end. I don't care. I'd still play him at 7,800. Dominant, everything. It's Tennessee. Go crazy. Kyle Pitts, I have no problem. If you can fit him, you do it. I mean, there's no reason not to. It just depends on what you want to do with your lineup.
I mean, do I really even need to comment? Yes, no. yes. I mean,
he's so ridiculous.
It's really ridiculous, man. In the connection that they have, if somehow, some way they could land on the same NFL team, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. But
I mean, maybe Pitts is the first round and Kyle's the second round pick. It's not out of the question.
Not out of the question. And I know we moved on from receivers, but I'd be interested to see where Kadarius Toney's price point is as well, because I know he doesn't get the volume, but he's just one of those. I'm assuming it can't be too high. So if you went high end quarterback, high end running back, and you were looking for I don't want to call him a boom bust player because I do think he's a little more consistent than that. But I mean, Trask is just so good at distributing the ball. Like he doesn't really lock into one guy besides Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
But I'd just be interested to see where Tony's price point is because he's
Yeah,
he's
well,
a fun player too.
yeah, I mean, 6,700. We'll just throw it out there. He's just under Rondell Moore. It's not super cheap, and I agree with you. I thought he was certainly much more of a boom bust guy, but he's actually been pretty consistent. I mean,
Okay.
his breakout has been one of the most. And I'm, like I said, I watch the Gators. I know that depth chart like the back of my hand. I did not see this coming at all, and he has been a
Really?
consistent, legitimate receiver. This guy was a gadget player, 2-3 touches a game, fun, but like he's a damn receiver. I mean, he's good now, and really nice to see. I mean, as a fan, of course, but
Day
I think
two, day two, day two draft capital.
he's making himself some money this year for sure. And like you said, I mean, the receptions may not be there. He's not going to catch 10 balls, but he's going to get 2 or 3 carries. And then there's an off chance. I mean, he's a sick punt returner too.
Yep.
I mean, there's an off chance he returns a punt for you. So, yeah, definitely not a bad play. I mean, Gator stack's always in play this year, which is so nice to say after a decade of I don't even know what to say. So I'm having a lot of fun with the Gators this year for sure. I have not been able to say that for a long time. We talked about Chris Olave. I think he's definitely the 2. You can play him, but I say Garrett Wilson or bust a little bit there. I mean, Olave's not bad, and he could certainly have a ceiling game, but 7,100, not a suit. I mean, I'd rather play Tony or Rondell Moore like 1,000 times out of 1,000. Wan'Dale Robinson, very cool player for Nebraska. Interesting matchup. Purdue's not too good on defense. He's 6,900. He's gone way up. He was in the 4s recently, but he's getting everything. He's like Kadarius Toney on steroids. He's getting, 10 carries. He's getting 5 receptions a game. So, jack of all trades. He's definitely the Nebraska engine right now, I would say.
100%. And the only thing we're missing from Wan'Dale is getting in the end zone. That's it. That's the only thing we're missing. He's getting the volume. They're probably going to be down. They're probably going to be down. So he could be one of those guys that he could be a sneaky 2 touchdown guy, like not in a competitive game, but to make it respectable. They just lost a heartbreaker once again for Nebraska and Scott Frost. So they're going to do everything in their power to try to get a dub. And the best chance of that is McCaffrey and Robinson.
Yeah, and I don't know what Frost is doing with those quarterbacks. I mean, I say you just let McCaffrey go. I know he's raw, he's making mistakes, but like he's better than Adrian Martinez, I think.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Adrian Martinez was a Devy darling a couple. It seems like a long time ago, and it's not going to happen, man.
No, so yeah, I mean, I would be interested in the quarterback, but I just don't know who it's going to be, and even who starts, they may pull him mid-game, so I don't think we can do that. But yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson, I'd wish he was cheaper, but I think 6,900 is not out of the question. Javian Hiley for Coastal Carolina. This is an interesting dude, kind of commanding all the, this is kind of that guy on a smaller school that he's their one dude in the passing game, and so they throw it to him a ton. The problem is they don't throw a ton. When they throw, it's to him. And now we've already talked about the whole situation with Malik Willis. I don't think they're going to have to force the issue. 6,400, I think it's too much for him, although he was originally kind of a guy circled.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, man. I don't think they're going to have to air it out versus a Malik Willis-less Liberty team.
Yeah. Georgia, okay, I know we've stayed away from Georgia guys. Pickens is 6,300. I don't think I want him, but Jermaine Burton, true freshman, is $5,000 with JT Daniels against Vandy. I could play some Burton at $5,000. I think I don't want to pay up, but I do not hate getting a piece of Georgia, and there's a chance that he goes crazy like he did 2 weeks ago.
I love Jermaine Burton. I've been talking about this kid for a while. And here's the difference between a Jermaine Burton because some of your listeners might be like, well, you say fade Georgie, fade UGA, fade UGA. The reason why I would play Burton over Pickens is Burton's style of play. He's another one of those guys. All it takes is a 3-yard hitch route, and he's got the explosiveness to take that and juice it to the house. And at $5,000, I mean, he's going to catch some passes and he's going to have an opportunity to be explosive with the ball in his hands. Love the player. I think he's starting to come into his own. And in his mind, he looks like, damn it, I'm the alpha. Give me the ball. You
He
know what I
does
mean?
play like that for sure,
He
man.
he plays like, I know George Pickens is over there, but do you know who I am? And I love that, man. And if you watch him, it doesn't take much for him to create separation and take one to the crib.
Yeah, I think that's a real interesting play, potentially underlooked play at 5K. Then we got the duo of NC State receivers, Thomas and MZ. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. We've already talked about the team total. We've talked about the quarterback value. I think there's value there. MZ is only 4,900. So I kind of like that. They're exactly the same, I think, on receptions on the year. So there's not an alpha. They kind of share 1A, 1B. So take the cheaper guy and be happy about that. So MZ at 4,900, I think that's a play. We talked about Jerkovich and Virginia being a little bit of a pass, funnel defense. And so Zay Flowers at 5,200 is pretty interesting. This guy can easily come in with 7+ receptions.
Yep.
What do you think about him? I mean, he kind of, I think of Zay Jones and then I'm like, I hate Zay Jones, but Zay Flowers is not Zay Jones, and I think he's an interesting little player. And he's only 5,200. I think a guy that can go 7 receptions for that price point is someone you got to think about.
Hey man, Zay Jones would have been a beast for DFS, man. That dude caught a lot of passes.
True.
He caught a lot of passes. But Zay Flowers, if Jerkovich is going to do something in the passing game, and we're talking about him being a sneaky play, that could be a little stack that you can throw out there. Like, that's his guy. He's going to get he's the leading receiver on that team. You know, Hunter Long is a good player as well. But I definitely think he's going to command, a lot of the targets in that offense.
Yeah, even potentially a one-off if you need to fit a third receiver in or whatever at 5,200, even if you don't pair him with Jerkovich, although I think I will, just because when I played these tournaments, you got to get the guys who are 2-3% owned to really win some of those. Then we got Wesley Wright for West Virginia, kind of I think he's their leading receiver. I actually am not 100% sure if stats wise, but he definitely is one of their top guys, and they play Iowa State, who's a little bit of if you're going to attack them through the air is better than on the ground. And so 5K, just another one of those guys who are in that range that you can throw as a one-off. I'm not talking about a stack. I'm not super excited, but you got to find these values, and I think he could be a one-off.
Like it. I like the call.
And then finally, we're going to round it up. Running it back against the Gators. Tennessee has 2 guys that are interesting. Josh Palmer, 4,900. He's their leading receiver. And then my guy, Jalen Hyatt, true freshman, 3,700, kind of coming into his own. If Bailey gets in, freshman to freshman, I don't know, 3,700. You're not asking for a lot. He can take anything to the house. I remember he does have a long touchdown catch this season. I watched it live. I can't remember what game. It might have been Auburn. I don't know. I can't remember who it was, but he had caught like a 60-yarder. Speed for absolute days. I think they're going to try to get their young guys out on the field. I think they're trying to overturn that roster, and I like him for 3,700.
Let me tell you that this is the sneakiest of sneakies, right? Versus Florida. Florida's probably going to win this game by handily. If they put Harrison Bailey in, I can see a late touchdown to Hyatt. I mean, if you're going to go ahead and roll your true freshman quarterback out there, you might as well get your true freshman receiver involved with him, start to get a glimpse of the future. I could see that being for, you said 3,900 bucks?
37.
30. I'm not recommending.
You just need one catch. You just need one.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the lock of the week. Go play Jalen Hyatt everywhere, but I can definitely see a path for Florida getting up big, then bringing Bailey in. And the thing about college is, in the NFL, when you bring in these backup quarterbacks and blowouts, they just run it out. College, they're still running their offense. These are reps. So they're going to play action. They're going to try to throw the ball. So I can see a world in which he ends up, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, he catches 4 for 42 and a touchdown, like on a drive. You know what I mean? That can happen, man.
Well, and he had 3 catches last week, or their last game. With this year, I don't know if their last game was last week or not, but But he had 3 catches, and he's coming on, and he does have a long touchdown already. He's been listed as a starter on the depth chart all year, but Garantano, their typical starter, is just absolutely awful. I mean, he is a Division I college football player, so he's much better than I am, but he is not good for an SEC caliber team or player. So anyway, it's been rocky for them, but Hyatt's a true freshman. He's on the depth chart as a starter from day one, 18-year-old. That's all I need to know. And you watch his, I mean, if you're watching this and you haven't looked at his high school highlight tape, it is
Silly.
phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Silly.
I mean, one of these guys where you just like see it immediately, like, oh yeah, that's speed. Like, oh yeah, it pops. So
He's so good. He's so good, man.
yeah, I really like him. So yeah, this is the week for Jalen Hyatt. I'm definitely going to have it. He is not the lock of the week. That belongs to Ray GQ's own Rondale Moore at 6,800. That's going to be Rondale Moore week. We're going to have 100% of Rondale Moore. I don't know. I don't have 100% of anybody, but I'm going to have a heck of a lot of Rondale Moore. But yeah, that just about does it. Thank you, Ray, for coming on. Why wait till Sunday? Anything? What are you doing? I know you're dabbling in so many things. Destination Devy, FTN. So tell us where we can find you and what other stuff you got cooking.
Man, I'm just working, man. I just love scouting prospects, prospect evaluation, gearing up for the 2021 NFL draft and getting ready for 2021 Devy draft. So just check me out on Twitter at RayGQ. Thank you for having me on the show, man. It's been fun to watch your growth over the past couple of months when you were just kind of messaging me back and forth. And I was like, I like this guy. Like you're good, man. And to see you have your own podcast now and you're doing great things in the industry and having me on, I just want to say that I really appreciate it. And sincerely, man, you're doing your thing. I think you found a wonderful space. We need this space because not a lot of people talk college DFS outside of, I've listened to some bad ones. I won't say any names, but I don't need you to tell me to play Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence and Najee Harris and all the top guys. So you're doing a fantastic job, man. Keep it up.
Well, thank you so much. That's a great honor coming from you. I definitely hold you in high regard. You're truly one of the top guys in the Devy space, no question. You have a special charisma, and I love what you bring to the table. So why wait till Sunday? We can have a whole lot of fun on Saturday, whether it's for Devy purposes or DFS purposes. Let's get going. That college football is such a blast, and we will see you next week. Go out and get those green screens. Peace.